I want to deal with nuclear disarmament. I'm creating technologies as a physicist and as an engineer to safeguard all nations from nuclear weapon destruction. I am creating capabilities to disarm nuclear triadic platform weapons. This and the more advanced capabilities to deal with nuclear destruction prevention. I want the agency of the United Nations to form an organization within the United Nations to deal with these purposes. So the way I have to advise this organization, let's paint an analogy for y'all can comprehend what I'm trying to say. Imagine nuclear war breaks out and there's mushrooms of nuclear bombardments inflicted on the world in the midst of a nuclear war. So in order for the United Nations to deal with these type of issues, to safeguard all nations from nuclear destruction, I want to create a shadow diplomatic elite force. So this shadow diplomatic elite force will have immunity in the midst of a nuclear war to safeguard all nations from nuclear destruction. So they will have clear and full access to every nation's archives of intel agencies, every SCIF of every nation and their intelligence will have to give access unanimously to this organization within the United Nations in order to safeguard all nations from nuclear destruction. So this is the elite shadow force of the world. And it has this agencies, the agents will have, and the diplomats will have carte blanche, unfettered, full access to every nation's intel archives and every nation's intel agencies. And we will have immunity in the shadows to combat any nation that are launching nuclear weapons to any other nation. We have special team forces, elite forces that has total global immunity to rein in any nation on Earth that decides to launch nuclear weapons at any other nation. And these are the amendments that I'm bringing upon the council. To deal with these critical issues, I want the United Nations Assembly to make all nations on Earth permanent members of the Security Council. And this permanent member status of all nations within the Security Council will oversee this diplomatic intel agency to deal globally on this particular issue. So I consider myself, because I'm negotiating directly with Antonio Guterres, and on this amendments that I'm bringing upon the floor for the Assembly, I consider myself the United Nations International Senior Diplomatic Advisor on these topics and my amendments. So for that reason, I am beginning communications directly with Antonio Guterres, or the Secretary General of the United Nations, and I want the unanimous vote of the Assembly for this particular global national security interests. And the mission statement of this organization that I am bringing upon the Assembly to phase in within the United Nations Charter is, the mission statement is to disarm all nuclear nations unanimously when it comes to their nuclear weapons. All nuclear armed nations disarmament is the mission statement and an obligation of this particular elite force within the United Nations. So for that reason, I insist that all nations on Earth be permanent members of the Security Council, and that the United Nations Assembly ratifies this into the United Nations Constitutional Charter.